Welcome, guys, to a new episode of the Nomadic Parents. My name is Sylvia.
And with you, I'm here, George, your typical co-host. You're not managing to escape me this time either.
And in this episode, we are very, very lucky to talk with Hedvig Montgomery. Why don't you, Georg, tell us a bit about the topics we are covering in this episode?
Sure thing. In this podcast episode, we kind of decided to take a different angle on the whole. We wanted to focus on traveling with a kid and a nomadic lifestyle. As you will hear from Sylvia very soon, Hedvig is a person that has a lot of experience in this field in Norway. So we took this opportunity to challenge ourselves, our own concerns, and the things that we are afraid of going into a lifestyle of potentially 5 to 6 years of travel with our young daughter and potentially future kids as well, which I think was great. The conversation helped me so much. I got a lot of value out of it and really, really happy that we took the time to do this.
Yes, I totally agree. Hedvig Montgomery is a psychologist, Norwegian psychologist, focusing on parenthood, parents, and children. She has her own podcast show, book, and does a lot of articles on the topics. We're very happy to have her here on this episode, so let's get into it. In this podcast, we share month-by-month updates from my daughter's upbringing, from birth and further into her life on the road. Welcome to our new podcast, The Nomadic Parents.
Hi and welcome, Hedvig. It's very nice to have you with us here in this conversation today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for asking me. I'm so happy to be with you.
Today, we are blessed with beautiful weather. Me and Sylvia just talked about in the intro that one of the few days we're actually having sun in Ålesund and we're sitting indoor recording a podcast. It's almost a shame.
Almost, but the weather will stay for some more time, so I think you will have time to enjoy it.
We'll have to go for a walk later with Sakira.
That's part of our new life. Everything goes about after the clock of the kindergarten now. 3:30, 4, the life changed completely. And especially us living at the West Coast in more rougher weather, you got to squeeze out what you have in terms of weather. How is it in Oslo? Because you're sitting in Oslo, Hedvig, right?
Yeah, I'm sitting in Oslo. It's gray, kind of, but it feels a little bit like spring is coming. So I feel hopeful.
That's good to hear.
Something's blooming.
We would love to start this conversation a little bit more about you. We've already taken a chance to introduce a bit of what you're working with and some of the projects that you're involved in. But I think what better place to start than with your own parenthood? How many kids do you have, and what inspired you initially to kind of take that career path you're within now?
I got 3. I can't say kids anymore because the oldest one, he's 31 years old. And the youngest one, he's 14. So I've been parenting my whole adult life. And I remember before I had the first one, 31 years ago, I had a lot of thoughts about parenting, how I would shape him, how he would be the perfect kid, the best behaved kid ever. I thought during my pregnancy. And then I gave birth and had this little person at my chest looking into my eyes. And it was just like, all I've been thinking is completely wrong. You're a person and we are going to make this together. You are perfect as you are. There's nothing I need to teach you, but we learn. We need to find a way together. So I went it was a quick learning scheme for me, having a kid myself. And everything I had been telling other people as a young psychologist to be, it was just like, oh, how could I speak like that? How could I even think like that? So this young man changed me immediately.
Very fascinating.
Yeah, really thankful for that. So I've been working with families since I graduated from psychology. because it's so utterly interesting. We all come from somewhere, and it all shapes us. Who we are is a sum of our genetic dispositions. It's our what we experience during our childhood. It comes from choices. It's come from just pure luck. But all this is kind of mathematics, and some of this figures we can't do much about, but some of them we can. And talking to so many people about their life, about their upbringing, about what's happened in school, about the choices their parents did or didn't do, I find that it's so fascinating because it tells you so much about a person, and it tells you so much about a life. And it's just like, I love this puzzle. So that was why I started working with families.
I feel really, really humbled just listening into it, because it kind of sets me back to, maybe you want to share a bit. And so I just immediately came to think about you before pregnancy and then right after birth. I think a similar change happened, even though you don't work with the same things Hedvig does.
Yeah, I felt really touched by what you said about like when you finally have the kid and you're looking into the eyes and you're like, whoa, like this is a whole being, and I'm going to use the next few years to figure out what kind of personality it is and who this person is, and we have to somehow figure it out together. So I really agree with that.
I have this saying that I got told by a very smart man in Stavanger 2 years ago. I think I haven't shared it in this podcast yet. He told me, this was just when and Sylvia was pregnant, about in the middle. We were in a conversation. He knew that I was becoming a dad, and he told me, there is just one single tip I really ought to give you, which I have kind of, this is the only tip I can take credit for actually passing along. Everything else will be, you'll figure out yourself. And that is, every kid is like a diamond. Your role is to file down the edges so that it's not sharp and hurting others, but you can't change a diamond.
You can only smooth out the edges and make it fit better into society.
I really like that, and it really stuck with me.
But sometimes it's really hard sitting with this diamond, and then it doesn't fit in. Because school is different, or kindergarten asks for something else than what you produced. So I think a lot of parents really feel pressure from mothers-in-laws, from society, from kindergarten, from experts wanting something else than what they actually got in their hands, which makes parents feel shame.
Yeah, I
Like
can relate to that.
Totally agree. And that's exactly what we want to deep dive into in this episode, like expectations and how to help form maybe for us our lifestyle into a way that people can like kind of accept and that we're happy with, and give Sakira, our daughter, the best upbringing which is possible within our frames.
On that note, yeah, totally. That is the situation we are in now, that we're taking a lot of off-the-grid choices. And we've done that all our life, and we're continuing to do so. And we're planning to bring our children into this. And obviously this makes us think, reflect, and consider. And we talked about it just yesterday before this conversation, that I really feel this is a golden chance to get one of the maybe most experienced people hands-on and getting to ask the questions that I have. So I am personally really excited for this conversation.
But maybe we can talk a bit more about expectations, because Hedvig, you briefly touched upon it. And is there a lot of people listening into your podcast, The Foreldrekoden, that ask about how to meet your parents-in-law's expectations and society's expectations, and how they can take their own decisions?
Yeah, let's do that. I really had the same question.
It's really interesting because a family is so much bigger. It's not just parents and kids. It's also this uncles, grandparents, and of course mothers-in-laws, which do hang in there as well. And who makes the decisions? Who are important voices in this system? Which is not an easy question. And I think and every generation has its own difficulties, its own things they have to meet. It's different to bring up kids today than it was 30 years ago, I can tell you. It's really changed a lot.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but I just have a super quick question. Do you already feel the change from 14 to 31 amongst your kids? Do you have let's go back to where we were, but do you have one or two examples that are this is a massive difference?
There's so much changes that's been going on. It's like the food. Now they have so big expectations what the kids are going to eat that you have to think about it a lot more than I did with my first one. With him, I think Choco Pops was fine if that was the only thing he could eat. Nowadays, I think that would have been a disaster for everyone around. So one thing is the food issue. Another thing is, of course, that he was the first generation with computer games. But we didn't understand anything as parents because we hadn't seen that before, actually. So he's been playing a lot of computer games without anyone making any problem out of it. But nowadays, if a boy loves computer games, wow, we're into trouble. We have to discuss it. It's completely different.
Thanks for sharing those examples. Those are sticking out. But yeah, expectations. You were just in the midst of parents, grandparents.
Yeah, sure. And that's interesting because every generation has its own way of doing this, which is partly a reaction to what they self had as kids. They're trying to do it better. And this is hard. So that's the one problem. And the other problem is that the older generation, wow, memory is just so selective. What you do remember is not what really happened. So when your mother-in-law says, "Oh, but my kids were sleeping all night long from the first day. You just have to go away and trust them because they will sleep." That's simply not true. That's what they remember because so much time has passed since they were going around with a kid on the breast, trying to make them fall asleep.
That's so funny that you're saying because this exactly happened to me 2 weeks ago.
I was just thinking about you and Sylvia that my mother is literally, sorry mom, but my mom is literally harassing us a little bit. You should have been way ahead your game now. She's not sleeping good enough. You haven't been training. You should be doing this and this.
And of course, because now she sees you and you're a success, you're a grown-up man and everything, you're going to the toilet all by yourself, you're going to sleep every night without making any fuss. It's so much time that passed since she had a baby and she was doing all this. It's just very human and thankful. In a way, that's very helpful that we tend to remember all these really, really hard nights, staying awake, looking like we were 80 when we are just 28. You actually will forget that at some point, but that makes you in a way a lousy advisor. So I always say to the
new parents,
grandparents generation, you have to be a little bit humble because there's so much you have forgotten. And I tend to say to the parental generation, you are actually in charge. You are the one with your baby. You are the one that sees your baby every day. So you have to be a little bit proud of what you're doing and stick to your own, that you actually own this situation.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing.
Are you fine with me asking a question, Sylvia? I just have a little question that I really want to comment with here.
Go on.
So I came to think about because you mentioned, Hedvig, that often we root our own advice in our experience, but the experience can be washed out since it's been, as you said, 10, 20, 30 years ago. And I want to ask you both, since you both have been mothers and are mothers, what do you feel? I'll ask the question to you and Sylvia first. What do you feel are things in your mother and your parents that you see yourself doing now, or maybe trying to counteract?
Before I became a mom, I really reflected a lot on what I wanted to bring from my upbringing to my child's upbringing. And I remember one of the things I wanted to avoid was the stress around gatherings. I remember my mom would never sit down when we had dinner or like we had guest visiting. She would always like run around and be like, do you want something else to drink? Do you want different food or stuff like that? And I remember as a kid, I was always annoyed that she wouldn't just relax with us and spend the time with us. So I've been really mindful of not doing that. And one of the things I really loved from my upbringing is also connected to that, which is the food. That we had a lot of gatherings where we would just enjoy eating lots of stuff together. And that's one of the like main points of our life now, I guess. We invite friends over and we really have no phone time and super focused when we eat, so that it's like a positive experience.
Absolutely. I really feel we brought that part. But funny enough, when it comes to the hustling around when guests come in, you won't believe it, Hedvig, but I am the cleaner at home. I clean all the stuff. I clean the floor. But the one time and Sylvia goes, we got to clean the floor, that's before the guests come. I clean for us and ourselves, and then Sylvia cleans 10 minutes before the guests come.
Yeah, of course, there's some imprints at Sylvia as well. Well, then you get some help with the cleaning.
Yeah, I just have to invite guests more often. What about you, Hedvig? Are there things that you remember in your own parenthood that you were mimicking your parents, or now are you even close to becoming a grandmother or not?
I wish I were. We'll see. I hope when I become a grandmother that I will be helpful. That's really what I hope for. That's really what I'm going to try to be. I think my upbringing is such a long time ago. It's really difficult to imagine because the times were so different. School was different, how we looked after kids. My parents never went to anything we did because they were simply not interested. They were busy.
Okay.
It's really such a long time ago, but that was quite common
Is
by
that
then.
something that you remember in your own parenthood and that you try to counteract, or?
Yeah, I really tried to be there, to go and be interested in whatever they are interested in, to help them with whatever they are interested in, which is quite a hard job, actually, I realize. So I can see why my parents didn't do that so often, or not at all, actually. So I can clearly see that this change has been, and maybe that's an example of a reaction that maybe has been stretched too far, because a lot of kids nowadays are so supervised. They are having adults with them all the time. They are never allowed to do anything on their own. So maybe my parental generation has been a little bit too interested.
Well, that is a very interesting thought.
So there's a lot of things. But I think that really these reflections, what was the beautiful moments, what kind of attention from my parents was helpful and what was not. That's quite important questions, actually, because when you start thinking about it, then you can make choices. If you don't think actively about it, you can't make any choices.
Definitely.
And some have a lot of really positive experiences from their own childhood. Others have a lot of things they really want to do different, but there's always an opportunity to do exactly that
I think
different.
one of the problems is also that if you try very hard not to be something, you often end up on the other extreme. So it's important to like find a balance and be mindful of it, as you say.
I would love to open our first big topic before we move a bit back to your podcast, Hedvig, Foreldrekoden, which we also have some questions about and would like to speak about. But before that, we talked about that we really want to talk with you about what is a good parent today. And then we want to try to drift the conversation towards what is a good parent taken in the context of living on the road constantly. So maybe if we open the book, I mean, you work with so many people, you advise people, you make podcasts, you are on television, in magazines. Give us a quick rundown. 2025, a good and balanced parenthood. Is it possible?
Absolutely. But I think parenting is about 3 different things. It's about knowing something about kids and how they develop. You have to be a different parent to a newborn than you have to be to a 3-year-old, than you have to be to a 13-year-old. You really have to adjust how you parent to the age and the understanding of the kid. So I think the knowledge, knowing a little bit about what's normal when does what happen, makes you a much, much better parent. So looking into just development of children and knowing a little bit about that, that's one part of being a parent. Another part of being a parent is your own upbringing, like we were talking about. We got some patterns of how we're doing things. What makes us angry, what makes us happy, what's good flavors, all these kind of things. And not just reacting upon that unconsciously, but knowing a little bit when does these patterns come into play is important, and especially when it comes to what makes you angry. Because it's so easy to become angry for the same things as you've been shouted at for, which is not always helpful. So knowing this pattern a little bit, but knowing that your own part there comes from somewhere is important. But the third part, and that's really important, that's the child itself. Because the child is always shaping its own upbringing by its temperament, by his or her way of how he or she likes to eat, how if there's if there are any special problems or needs with the kid. So it's so funny because when you have one child, you always think that, you know how to be a parent, and then you get another child, and then it's like, oh, I got to change everything because this is different. And you think with your first one that you're good because you made her sleep and you know how to make kids fall asleep, and then you got another one who won't fall asleep at all, whatever you do, or the other way around. So to be a good parent is really something about being open-minded and curious about children in general and about your own child in special, because the child really needs you to bridge his or her need into the broader society.
Thank you, Hedvig. So, summarized, number 1, knowing the age you're parenting. Number 2, your own upbringing and patterns, and especially focusing on what made you angry. And number 3, the child itself and the behavior and the wishes. Those are really concrete advice. Do you have any questions, Sylvia, that come to your mind?
No, but I actually have something I would love to share, and then I would love to hear your thoughts about it. And so me and Georg, we really wanted to adopt our first child, but now because of the political situation, all the borders in Norway are closed. I'm not going to deep dive into that, but part of adopting a child, you have to go through these courses on how to become a good parent. And during these courses, you kind of deep dive into your own childhood. You learn very much about the developing stages of the kid, and you also reflect on what makes a good parent. And in general, I believe actually this course should be offered to all parents, whether or not they're adopting or not. And then I would love to hear your thoughts about it. Do you guys agree? What about you, Georg? Do you feel like this should be mandatory?
I mean, I think I've publicly stated before that absolutely. I was shocked, when we undertook that training. I was so happy that we did it, regardless of that the border have closed momentarily in Norway, because it prepared us so much better than we could have ever imagined for having a kid. So I am shocked that is not a more public available option.
Definitely. What about you, Hedvig?
I think this was why I started writing my first book, Parental Magic. which, because I have so many clients, which I saw in my office, asking me, but what is good parenting? What is it? And in a way, it's not a method. It's not something you can learn from. If you do this and this and this, then you will be successful, because it's more like learning to dance. There are two parts. It's you and the kid, and you have to put this into a rhythm in a way. And there's a lot of way to do good parenting, really a lot of different ways. I come home to families doing it differently, even now after 30 years doing this. And I think, wow, you can do it that way. Oh, you can do it this. Oh, you can have dinners like that. Of course, there's so many good ways to be a parent. So I think we shall be really open for this, that there's not one correct answer. There's a lot of correct answers, but it's like learning to dance. It takes some time and it takes some reflection, and you have to practice, and you won't be perfect every time.
Do you have any concrete opinions about a public coursing system in terms of parenting? I mean, it's a tough standpoint to take, and I won't force you.
Yeah, depends on the course, because again, it has to be sensitive for different cultures, for different ways of forming a family. I think that I always get afraid when something has to be a mandatory, that you will put it into being very narrow. And in Norway, things tend to become quite narrow fast.
That is a very nice point of view sharing. That is a very valid argument there. But yeah, I felt it was a great thing to go through, and I felt I learned a lot. There was one thing that I came to think about when you talked about the second point of learning your patterns of and from your parents, of what you kind of inherit through genes in some ways and behavior. And just some months ago, I sat down with my dad, and he shared with me quite openly, but also in a surprise from my side, in the way that it came when I was 29, that he felt a bit sorry for me also having, I'd say, like, I have anger problems in the way that I can get really frustrated by dirt or chaos, or when thing goes out of order. And that is something that agitates me immediately. Like, I really have to work with it, because it's like physically agitating me very quickly. And that can result in anger. And it wasn't a challenging conversation or anything, but he just came to me and said, "Hey, I just want to be sorry on your behalf, in the way that you have this from me, and you have this from my dad again. We all had the same." And then I thought, I really want to do that conversation with my kids when they're 6, 7 years old, because it could have saved me a lot of trouble, even though I knew inside that this was the thing, and many other people have told me along the way. I'd love if, at the point where I was conversational, not just one conversation, but maybe quite a few, that the reason you experience anger now is because I do the same, and your grandparent did the same. I think it would have saved me a lot of trouble later in life. But it's a tough thing to think about, and I cannot say that I will remember in 6 years, hopefully.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful story, and it says something. So really, it says something about your dad. And it was almost my tears coming through when you told me that story right now. I think that the best we can do for our kids is to help them to live their life with themselves, like they are. And some kids tend to become very silent and easily don't take any space, or don't take the room they need. We need to help them to take that room. And other kids become very easily bored or get angry from stuff, and they've been told off a lot by teachers and by other people in their surroundings, which is really not helpful for them at all. And I think that when you see something in your child that you know that feeling. Your father knows that feeling, becoming so angry for stuff you wouldn't you shouldn't need to become so angry about. Or that's really helpful when he sees that in you and nods to your feeling. Yeah, I know that feeling. I know what's that like. And giving that to a 7-year-old is like, yeah, I know what's that like, becoming so agitated for almost nothing. But hey, you can live a good life with that. And there are other ways to get around it. That's so beautiful. And your dad doing that to you now, sitting down with you, and what he tells you is really, hey, I know that feeling.
It definitely took a rock from me, even though I knew it. Just the situation of having that conversation takes some weight off the shoulders. But yeah, let's move a bit into parenting on the road. We have a couple of questions. I mean, maybe you want to share a bit, and Sylvia, about our plans upcoming.
I will share some about our plans. I just want to comment a bit on what you said, and that is that if our kids do end up being like leaning towards where you're leaning about, like becoming very agitated about the small things, I also believe it's very important to point it out that, okay, I also have it like this, but maybe also share how you live with it and how you've been resolving it and how other people might resolve it, to give more like options and show that I have empathy for this and we will figure it out if it bothers you.
Yeah, really. Because the most important thing in life is not feeling totally alone, not feeling abandoned, not feeling like the only person in the world dealing with this. And a lot of kids sit with stuff feeling like they are failures, or like there's something wrong, because they react in a way that's, well, we've seen that before. But no one tells an 8-year-old that wants to sit down in a class, like, well, a lot of kids need more time to sit down.
The feeling of togetherness is
we'll
very
find a way.
important. It is
Very important. And that's interesting, because when you're telling about, when you start talking about taking your kids with you to experience other cultures, doing other work, going somewhere because you have to or because you want to, that's also about keeping this togetherness.
Definitely. And that's part of what we want to jump into. But to set the scene, I'll quickly try to explain our future plans, because as you probably figured, like we're very nomadic lifestyle, like hence the name Nomadic Parents. And our child, like our daughter, is currently in kindergarten, but she's ending this week, and she's going to start a new kindergarten in Lofoten from next week. And then for the coming years, we're also planning to be a lot on the road, and we're not very sure on how we will solve it in terms of kindergarten.
Yeah,
or do you
there
have
are
anything else to add, Georg?
There are some open questions there. I mean, out of the blue, we decided to. I mean, we have been out and in of Ålesund the last 10 years, maybe in total only spending around 3 to 4 years here. And then we decided that Ålesund is not the base for us. We want to live more remote for our Norway base. So we decided to buy a house on the top tip of Lofoten, which we kind of look at like we want to give it a chance as our new home base. So we're really looking at relocating, not just moving for a short while. But then our plan is to be there for half a year to test it out. But then really the intention and everything we've been working towards the last years and are in the position of now is to fully live out that nomadic lifestyle, because we have been traveling so much in the past, and we want to kind of use the time before school, because we are on the common impression together that from first, second grade, it's very important to kind of choose a place and stay there for quite a while. But until then, we really aim for a life on the road, mostly probably traveling in an RV, like a bigger car, a camper van. That is something we both love, because we can climb, we can surf, and living costs are very low. So
and
that
we
is
need
a bit
the sun.
summarized. That is summarized. We don't know where to go. Maybe, I mean, we have been so much around. I don't know if you saw it, but for example, the from December last year till May, we were in Ecuador with our daughter, 6 months in South America. We both love those experiences, getting out of the Western countries or the northern Western countries. It brings so much in terms of culture and closeness to people and other values.
Kids this small, before they start school, family is really the most important unit for them. So the two of you, but also grandparents and other family, is important to a kid at this age. So making this family feeling is really what they are looking for. When you ask a 5-year-old how would you like to live, they really want to live small. One room is enough where everyone is, because they want to be this close. So going with a van now, beautiful. Going with a van with a 14-year-old might be harder, right?
Okay, so
yeah.
what you're saying, it's actually,
so
it
this-
could be a good reasoning behind our intention of going out now, that it makes sense.
going out now is beautiful, and she really needs you. But it's stressful for parents to be so important for the kid, because you won't get much help from other people's around. That's the hard part. It demands more of the two of you than if you were in a place where you had your stable kindergarten and grandparents and friends coming over and all this. So it demands more of you. And I think
Luckily,
really,
we have a lot of experience from before, so we know each other very well from many years on the road. I think that helps a lot, because if I think back, or maybe you can take that part on, so if you think back when we went on the road as 19, 20, 21, there was a lot of conflicts as well from living in such a small space.
Yeah, we're definitely settled into our roles and found a rhythm we're very happy with, and personally very excited to take our small family onto the road again.
Take that bubble feeling.
so that bubble feeling, and 3-year-old love bubble feeling. So
I'm
that's
very
nice.
happy to hear you say this, because like I feel very pressured from expectations and society, and I only want the best for our children. So hearing you say like, go have fun, it's going to be great, it's like
It is a breakout thing, because especially in the Western countries, there is such a high pressure around the 30s, 25 to 45, that this is your career time. And we're kind of turning in the door and saying, well, we did career in our 20s. Now we want to do parenting full out. We have really deserved to go in a 6-year Sabbath period. And we're doing this because we want to look back and be like, hey, we had so much fun on the road with our kid. Yes, we spent less. Yes, we didn't buy all the things that we wanted to buy, but we had an amazing time out there. And then career can come later. And it's a tough standpoint to take in today's society, because everything goes on success. And success is measured in job positions, I feel like.
But there are so many ways one can live. There's so many things you can do, and there's much more choices than you actually see. It's okay, you're making this choice. And then you asked me about kindergarten, and that's interesting, because going into a new kindergarten is a big change for a kid. There's a lot of noise, a lot of people, a lot of things going on. There's a rhythm in every kindergarten. So until there's at least one of the adults working in the kindergarten that really knows your kid, it will be hard for her. So this is about getting to know. And it takes some time. Because she needs to feel that somebody knows how to calm her down when she's upset. She needs to feel that she knows the rhythm in the kindergarten. She needs to feel that she has someone to go to when she doesn't know what to do. And when she's got there, she will be happy in a new kindergarten. But people often think that it's about the kindergarten, but it's really about the people working there and how you communicate with them.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask is, do you have any concrete thoughts on no help at all, local kindergartens or communities? Because we also have quite a few friends that travel around in the world and very actively seek a bit more alternative communities, self-sustained communities where they live together and take care of the kids, kind of like home kindergarten. We are currently imagining that we will be on the road, but maybe every 6 months we'll kind of change region a bit and we'll try to settle in that region. Do you think that time span of 6 months that you're able to establish those small roots that a 3, 4, 5-year-old needs, or will the van be the only route?
The van will be the main issue here, and it will be the two of you will be the most important persons, much more important than you would have been if you stayed in Ålesund. So the two of you will be even more important to her, and that's really the most that's demanding, and it's beautiful. That's asking something from you, and it's giving something back to you. Of course, you must always be, as a parent, a little bit cautious so you don't turn your kid into someone who is more part of a special group but can't fit into someone who's too different from the group she's going to live with later on in life. So normality, not being too extreme. Yeah, of course you can have other parents doing different stuff, but maybe it's good that they are not too fixed in ideas about political systems or religious systems or food systems. So it makes it too narrow. Again, I think it's important because you're traveling to show a kid how big the world is, not making it smaller.
That is a good saying. That is
definitely. So what you're saying, or what I'm taking away, is that we should keep in the back of our mind that at one point we'll be back in Norway, so she needs to fit into the Norwegian society later.
Or maybe not. Maybe you won't even get back to Norway. Maybe you get to what do I know, South Africa or Berlin or whatever. But even so, it's this experience that there are many ways to live your life is what she will take with her if you let her.
What I'm also hearing a bit in this conversation is that it seems important to illustrate and talk about change, that we're moving or we're changing a place now, and also maybe emotionally involving her in that decision. There's one thing that stuck with me a lot from my childhood is that even though I don't think I was in a position to say what I meant, when my parents moved from Germany to Norway, I was 5 years old. I can't remember being asked much or like emotionally led through that process. Maybe it happened, so maybe I just forgot. But I guess that are important processes.
I think that we all, at all ages, we need to feel like we can put some kind of fingerprint into our lives. So to let her choose something, what to bring, where, what to have for breakfast in a new place, or whatever. These small things that is about asking, not telling. And when you prepare a child for something, a child under 7 years old, she doesn't have any idea really of what time is. When she's 3 years old, time is just something happening. When she's 5 years old, she might know how long a week is, but more than a week, impossible to understand. It's like asking her to tell you how big the universe is. It's impossible to her. So you also have to have some kind of respect of her feeling of time, which makes it important to go more slow. You have to let her feel that she is actually coming with you in your decisions, in your travel, in the new places. I wish that every parent knew how slow kids actually do think, how often they think they need to have things told again and again and over again, because that's why they are listening to the same story again and again and again, because they are seeing new aspects and new things in the story like 28 times, and then they want a new story.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Hedvig. That definitely puts a new perspective, and I really hope that people listening in here today also feel that this is valuable, because for me it's new information, something that I really need to digest and take in. eventually, really on the end, we would love to move into roots. But before that, I know that you and Sylvia had a couple of questions on Hedvig's podcast. It's in Norwegian, but we would love to talk a bit about that and what kind of questions people have. What do you receive the most? What is kind of the why don't you take over, and Sylvia?
Yeah, what we were most curious about is what other people are very curious about, and like what's in the wind currently. What do you feel like you're always getting asked?
There's so much different. It's really I know it's strange, but that's really a hard question, because in one way I think it's like the same, like it's always been: how to quit diapers, how to quit the soother, how to help them making friends, how to help them when they don't feel like they fit in at school, how to help them when they are feeling totally lonely, 16-year-old, and don't have any friends at all. It's really, when I'm saying all these questions, when I'm thinking about them, it's so, every single question is so important and so special for the person who asks it, that I feel that it's more like, it's not a sum of questions. There are important life issues which needs to be reflected upon and heard and really taken into account. So I think making this podcast, which I never meant to do, it was just by accident. We started because I was going to write a column, and I said, why don't you make a couple of podcasts before you start the column? And I thought, well, why not? I thought that was 4 or 5 podcasts. But I really enjoy, and now we are going into the 6th year of the
Wow!
podcast.
Congratulations!
So it's been going and going. But I think that this, what do people really need to be good parents? I think they need, again, to feel that there are some stuff that you can learn, that you can do better, and they need to feel that they are doing well from where they are. And giving some space for just reflection, and giving some space for taking this, because other people are not that interested in quitting diapers, right? But it's actually an important question when you're there. So I think that just making space for all these big questions, which seem small for people who are not there, is kind of what we're doing.
Do you feel that in general, people should be more proud in the job they're doing and more confident that they're actually a good parents, and that a lot of Norwegians are very, how can I say that, unsure, like uncertain?
I feel you are a proud mother, and Sylvia.
That's beautiful. I love the two of you. No, I think that we are desperately seeking for a quick fix, which is not there. Bringing up a child takes at least 20 years.
I'm still a baby.
Oh, is that so? So we are not looking for quick fixes. We are looking for living together. And I think a lot of parents get stressed out because they are trying to do things immediately. Perfect. But heading for perfect is much better than doing it immediately.
Well, that is a really good place to end this conversation. And if you don't mind us just rounding off on, I think 2 minutes, 3 minutes, the last thing that we really still talk a lot about, and we'll probably talk about it all our life, is the topic of roots. Because we feel, I mean, we both have a lot of stories from our own background, what we remember, our parents, friends, and society around us are putting pressure on us in terms of roots. But then we, in the midst of it, we feel kind of going most possible places and experiences also can give a lot of roots, because we see it already from that time in South America, how much it has changed her. Even she was a toddler. We come home and the first thing people say, why does she have this like smile in her eyes, and why is she so open towards everyone she's meeting? I haven't seen a baby like this that looks at me with so much confidence. And I'm not an expert like you, Hedvig. So what I've been answering is like, I guess because she's been looked at by many other people on Smile too, because we like put her in the spot. If we're in a market in Ecuador, we're not hiding her behind our back. We're putting her on the fruits and like waving with the hands, and the woman comes to the front and she waves with the hand back. And so for me, like going around has always been one of the strongest memory with my parents. All the trips and travels we did are very strong memories.
I think that what you're saying is totally true. Other cultures are much better at taking care of kids because I see every kid as something special and something worth everyone to smile and wave at. And that's a good experience. Now, roots, that's really interesting. I moved a lot as a child as well. And the worst question I get is, where are you actually from? Because I don't know. I don't know the answer. I always feel stupid being asked that. Because I really don't know. Where am I from? I don't know. I haven't got any home to go to now where I've been living as a kid. And I can see I'm happy and I'm good at meeting new people because I've been meeting so many new people. And I think that's a valuable experience as well. So you get something and you lose something.
Visst du.
But remember when you bring kids to new places, they pick up languages really fast when they're this young. They really do. But that takes energy and work for them. So you have to give them more space for sleep and more space for not doing anything special. Don't be too ambitious when you're moving with kids, because it costs energy for them to adjust to new languages and new places. Then you need to give them more space and more just hanging off time and more relaxed time. I think that traveling with kids and giving them this experience that there's a lot of possibilities in the world is a very important thing. It gives them something they will bring with them always. But also, go back home for holidays. Take care of your relationships at home. Show them how you take care of longer relationships, not just new acquaintances.
That's amazing tips, Hedvig. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, I'm just writing down here, and yeah, summarize what you're saying is that the more you're out, the more energy you're actually spending, and maybe you have to rest more because you are moving a lot, which makes totally sense when you put it that way. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, I've had an amazing time. How about you, and Sylvia? Have you gotten answer to some of your questions?
I definitely have gotten answers to some of my questions. And I also enjoyed this hour we had together a lot.
So if anyone listening in has any questions that you want to forward, then reach out to us and we'll try to answer them or forward them to Hedvig in future for a future episode. I hope it's okay that maybe in the future, in a year or two, maybe we do another talk together, or we call you when we're panicking.
Please do. And I really wish you all the best in Lofoten. I hope you will get a nice, amazing time there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining in, and we will follow along Foreldrekoden, your Norwegian podcast, with delight and pick up more tips and tricks there, and then we'll see how this adventure goes forward.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Wow, what a conversation. That was I felt like I was here like an open lexicon.
I feel like we had a private how can I call it? Private session on how to air out all our concerns and stuff, and then get validation that we're actually not very far off.
But I feel it just came at the very right moment, and it tells a lot about. I just want to give a bit shout out to our team behind the curtains helping us producing this podcast at LD Studio, our agency in Norway, because they chose Hedvig just at the right time here. They know that we are going out on the road, that we're ahead of recording a TV series in the mountains. We're moving place in Norway. We're going out of Norway very soon on a permanent basis, which I know for a lot of people listening in here, it is exciting. It's like one of the reasons people come in here and listen to our story and our adventure. And I just felt they put us so on the spot, putting us in this uncomfortable and vulnerable position, challenging us to meet all our fears going on the road.
Definitely. So thank you to our team and great job. And then for the next episode, I think Sakira is just starting her tantrums. So please send help.
Yeah, we won't really touch down on our 4 regular topics in this episode. So you'll wait, in 2 months' time, we'll come with a new episode with more exciting guests, but we'll also take some time in 2 months to sit down and talk about Sakira's development. But she is thriving in kindergarten. And what more do you have to add? I see that you're on the top of your... You really want to come with something.
I feel that I say this every episode. Oh, she's developing into a person. She's getting so much personality. But now it's really starting. I think she's on the verge of really starting her language curve and learning lots of words. So we're having lots of fun.
I am excited for the language bit. And talking about that, I come to reflect back. Hedvig told us that one of the biggest mistakes parents do on a general level, not separating between traveling or stationary, is that they define their role as a parent out from objectifying the kid. Like, you have to teach this, you have to teach this, you have to teach this. And then you're saying, I feel like I say this every episode, but she's really developing as a person. And I think that is spot on what Hedvig was trying to explain us, that you can't really do much then co-live. You have a lot of responsibilities, but it's not like an object that you have to train a lot of things. You just co-live and show how you live.
I definitely agree. I'm also very, very pleasantly surprised over Hedvig's opinions and how she's very balanced and helping us see new shift our views a bit, and really stoked after this conversation.
What has it done to your own concerns? Because you have been quite concerned in terms of roots, kindergarten, moving too much, having that home caring experience. I feel positively surprised. She felt, I mean, really her attitude shifted towards, yes, do it before they get too old.
I feel it both validates my concerns but also calms me down, because in a way, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but how I understood it is that going into a new kindergarten is a big change and it's stressful for the kids. So what my takeaway is that should try to avoid doing that too often. But at the same time, we are the most important person. So as long as we are sturdy, loving, always present, she will endure most of it, whatever we throw at her.
Yeah, I have the same takeaway, that maybe we even have to reduce our ambition a bit of settling in and goose eyes in places and finding kindergartens, that it is more important to keep a steady pace of movement, not ripping off, settling down, ripping off, settling down, but finding a more constant pace and rather sacrificing distance or speed, so that the everyday holds a lot of rest times that are not, because we love to see new place, we love to meet new people, we love to be on and about, and I definitely see that becoming one of the biggest issues, that we're constantly on the move.
Definitely. And also, I was thinking about the language part she mentioned at the end, that because at home we didn't tell her this, but at home we speak German and Norwegian, and then abroad she's obviously going to have a third language, so she's going to be exhausted at the end of the day.
Or even 2 second language, like both English and Spanish are very likely to be highly present. Yeah.
So
but
we'll
those
give her
are
lots of space.
massively good takeaways. And I just want to redrop again those 3 core tips of Hedvig, because I know that she's talking a lot about it in her podcast too, and it's also a substantial part of her book, Foreldremagien, which in German is called Die Hedvig Methode. You can probably find it around in bookstores in Germany. And she let us know that the book exists in a lot of different languages as well. So if you're curious, you should hit that up, and we'll make sure to put it down in the show notes. But she mentioned point number 1, remember which age you're parenting. Point number 2, your own upbringing and your own patterns of your adults are likely to be repeated, specifically anger issues, and be aware of those and be hands-on in talking about them. And focus on the child itself, the wishes, the behavior, the character, and let that guide you instead of your own kind of like list of things you have to teach that.
And acknowledge that he or she is his own person.
Yeah, those are really nice takeaway. And with that, I think we're on the very end here. Do you want to say something specifically? I have a little list, but I'll give you the words first. I feel like you have never anything to add on the end. You're like a closed book. No, I'm done. I want to go home now.
I said what I have to say.
Mic drop. That is about the time you got. I just want to remind everyone listening in that we have merch up on our homepage. Check that out. Some really cool stuff coming out there. And if you want to follow along on the production of our upcoming TV series, we have taken a break in the Nomadic Business Insight podcast, which I'm running, and publishing a small little, let's call it like a test podcast in the same feed called Elys, which is based on a very old project we did together. And that podcast is more like a week-to-week conversation between me and Sylvia and other guests and people we meet along. So we're going to try to publish that podcast on the go whilst we're doing the TV series. We'll see how long that lasts. Now you can get some final words.
No, I'm good. Thank you guys so much for listening in. And as always, my name is Sylvia. His name is George. And
My name is George.
We are your hosts at the Nomadic Parents. Are you happy with my exit?
No comment.